Today, I'm working on a Sherman tank. That's right, I have a real Sherman tank here, also known as a dual 1229 automatic turntable here. This one needs a full overhaul, full lubrication, and the motor's squeaking. So we're going to rip this thing apart, and we're going to make it sound like $1,000,000 right here today on Tech Talk. I have a dual 1229 that needs to be serviced. This one's got the classic problems with the automatic pickup. We're going to remove the cartridge here for safekeeping. How you remove the cartridge on all these duals is as follows. All these stock duals. You just push back on this little lever here. Grab the cartridge first. When you push back, the cartridge will drop out like that. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind is that these contacts do need to be cleaned from time to time, where these little pins press up against the little connector on the back, little piece of circuit board basically. They will get noisy, so you got to keep that in mind that occasionally you may have to clean those off. Use good quality contact cleaner such as Deoxit or something on there just to maintain good connectivity. But I'm going to remove the cartridge while I'm working on this so that it doesn't get damaged. This is a client's unit, and then we're going to continue. We're going to take this thing apart and do the mechanical service on this unit. Okay, the first thing when servicing one of these units, if you want to get under the turntable itself, what you need to do is remove the center spindle, and then you're going to have to remove this clip that's underneath. And the easiest way is just to grab it and just give it a bit of a pull. You can get it with something small enough. Sometimes you'll have to pry it out with a screwdriver, but they'll usually come out fairly easily on these duals. You can usually just get a screwdriver in here like that, pop the ring out. That's your retainer ring. So we'll put that for safekeeping as well. And now we can lift the turntable off. You'll see that this is a nice heavy, it's even got a strobe disc on the bottom. And that's what gets reflected. If you notice here on the side, there's a mirror here and there's a neon lamp. And if you look down through here, when the turntable is on, you're able to, I think, see the, it shows up over here. There's a mirror underneath here, and it shows up right here, so you can actually see your speed. And it's reflected from the strobe disc on the bottom, which is kind of cool. Now these are real nice turntables. The 1229 was one of the better ones that Dual made of this rim type drive, because this turntable itself here is actually very heavy. So it's very accurate for maintaining. It's got a lot of momentum to it to maintain the correct speed. So some of the things that sometimes need to be done to these units is we'll just wipe the edge of the tire with Rubber Renew. That will soften it up and keep it from getting too hard. So we'll do that first. Now there are many ways to do this. Some people will use a cloth. I just use a Q-tip myself. Just hold it up against the edge and rotate it a couple times. Now what this will do is this will take off any oxidation on the rubber and prime it and keep it nice and pliable and soft and sticky. After wiping it down, use the other side and just dry it. Right, and you can see we got a bit of debris and oxidation off there. Okay, we want to lubricate the shaft. We'll deal with the motor separately, but we'll just get some good quality oil. I'm just using 3-in-1 electric motor oil. This is a very pure oil. I think it's like 20 weight, something like that. I think that's what they say it is. Anyway, it's a pure oil. It's good for electric motors and works fine for turntables. Just a drop is all you need onto the shaft itself. And we'll put the turntable back on. Now, I can hear something rubbing. What is rubbing? What's going on here? Is that this disc here? I bet you that's the strobe disc. The strobe disc here, if you notice, it's not glued down properly. And that strobe disc, we're hearing it rub. Every time it goes around, it's rubbing up against. And of course, the reason that's happening is because the glue that holds the strobe disc down is drying out. So we're going to have to re-glue the strobe disc down to make it lie flat. See, the glue on the back side of the paper here is dried out, or the sticker. So we're going to have to get some glue on there and glue that down so that it lies completely flat. So as you can see, this is lifting up literally almost all the way around. So we're just going to take some glue and we're just going to put some glue underneath the part that's lifting up. And re-glue and once this glue sets, hopefully this will lie flat and I won't hear it rubbing. So I'm just going to glue this down now, let this glue set up, and then we'll test it again and see whether it rubs. Now I have removed this disc completely, and I did reapply glue because some of the other spots it was starting to lift as well. So I took it was actually only secured really good in one spot. The rest of it all the way around was coming loose, so I did actually remove the whole entire strobe disc and I've secured it all the way around. And I know I didn't show that part on camera, but trust me, before you sound off in the comments saying you only glued half of it, no, I glued the entire thing. You can see the glue all the way around the edges here. I'm just wiping it out, any excess. And then we'll let this dry for a while and then I'll put it back in, and hopefully we won't hear that rubbing sound because that was annoying. Then I can take the mechanism apart because this does have a problem with the automatic mechanism. It's getting stuck. Now that the glue has sufficiently dried, let's reset the turntable. Okay. Nice and quiet, as it should be. We'll put the retaining clip back in, just like that, and now we can put the spindle back. Let's power this thing up and see what it does. So 33, let's check the speed of with the strobe. Whoops, that'll pick the arm up and bring it back. If we look down, there's the strobe. Okay. There's a neon lamp that is shining on that disc, and we can adjust the pitch control to either slow it down or speed it up. Pitch control doesn't appear to be doing anything. What's happening here is this control that controls the speed is gummed up and it's not allowing me to shift the speed properly. The mechanism is gummed up, so to take this thing apart to work on it, I know this unit here is open from the bottom, but it's easier if we just remove the chassis. So let's just undo the the transport screws. These screws are normally used if you're transporting a turntable like this. You push it down, and then you bring the screws all the way up and you tighten them up this way, and that'll compress the springs for transport, right? And when you're operating it, you normally have the screws screwed down all the way, but we put them into this free state so that we can lift them up a bit and get them out of the way so that I can actually lift the mechanism out of its cabinet. Lift the mechanism out just like this. And we'll turn it over, and I'm going to set it upside down, obviously protecting the toner arm. I'm going to rest it on the edge of the cabinet like this, and we'll turn the cabinet around so that, or actually I guess I can move it over like this. I just want to protect the tone arm so the tone arm's not going to touch anything. Now I can proceed to lubricate the chassis. The part that's of interest is this piece here, which has a tendency to stick when you move the speed up and down. This lever gets gummed up, and I'm having to actually help it along manually to shift speeds. So what we want to do is we want to clean that. We're going to clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol. So I'm just going to get a Q-tip. I'll soak it in isopropyl alcohol. And we're going to clean this up. This will remove any of the excess old dried oil that's on it. And now we're going to get some oil. Good old 3-in-1 works just fine. And we'll put 1 drop on the shaft like that. That was probably more than a drop, but we'll soak up the excess. And now, as you can see, it slides up and down without any problem. We also want to clean the grease on the back side of this cam. It's a plastic cam here, and I just want to get in there and clean out any dried up grease that may be inside that cam. And I'm just going to use a Q-tip to do that too. As you can see, the grease in here is getting kind of dry. Now it's not as important that you replace that grease. If you want to replace it, any good quality machine type grease. I'm going to put some lithium grease in there for my, the good old VCR lubricating lithium VL grease. That does a good job. And we'll also put a bit on the little ball bearing back here. Okay, that's got that part taken care of. Now we need to move over to the main cam gear. This is the most common problem on these units, is this groove here gets gummed up. So this main cam gear here, this is what controls the mechanism. What happens is this lever here gets gummed up, and well, all the mechanism gets gummed up. The grease dries out on this entire mechanism, so you have to re-lube it. One place you don't want to put lubricant is underneath here. This is actually the friction pad that moves the tone arm, and if it wears out and gets too slippery, it won't move the tone arm properly. So that's one place you really want to try and avoid getting excess grease in here. Keep that part clean. What we're going to clean out any of the excess grease from this track. We'll just use a Q-tip here and just push it through the track and wipe out the excess grease that gets dry. And basically just move the grease, right? Get the dried stuff out of the way. It's still lubricating, it's just that what happens is it gets dried up and the mechanism starts to seize up. So we just want to take this grease out. And in the process of doing that, we're actually lubricating the mechanism, because the grease itself still has lubricating properties. It's oxidating and getting kind of dry. So push a Q-tip through there. That'll free parts up. If you want, you can put some fresh grease in there. Now when the machine operates, when you operate your start and stop lever, what it does is it, and also when the tone arm gets to the end, what it does is it pushes this arm over. So this one here can get stuck. So we want to make sure that that isn't getting stuck. To free that up, I'm going to actually operate the machine, operate the table without power, just by hand, to get the gear turning. And I'm going to have to lift it up on its side so that the tone arm doesn't make contact with anything while I do this. But as you can see, as I rotate the table, that gear is going to turn. And this cam is going to follow the groove, or this lever is going to follow this cam groove. Which, what this does is this is what lifts the arm and moves it over. So as this follows the cam, this is what operates the mechanism. And you'll see that that lever down here is going to get pushed over. As it rotates, it's going to get pushed over out of the way. Now, depending on what way that lever goes, if the lever is in one direction, the cam is going to follow the path around the outside of the cam gear. If it's in the other position, it's going to go through the center groove. The center groove, one of them is for a reject to start the record over from the beginning, and the other one is to stop it. So one's for start and one's for stop. So we want to make sure that we get this whole groove cleaned out on both sides. You can see now it's going to go in, it's going to grab my new grease that I just put in. And if I flip it the other way, here. Oh, that's the record size. I knew I was flipping the wrong thing. It's this one over here. If I flip this lever, watch what happens over here. If I flip it one way, it'll go to start. I think that's start. Yeah, that'll be start because it just moved the switch for the motor. This is the switch here. So now it will kick the gear, and watch what way it goes. Cam gear moves over to the edge. This lever just gets flipped here by this arm. It follows it around the outside of the track. And now it drops down. And if I flip the lever the opposite way, which is that way.
Now I'm holding the unit at an angle, so gravity worked against me here, and it actually went to the outside of the track instead of the inside. If you notice, that little metal lever actually moved on its own. But it is free, it is working. So I'll get it going here. I just got to hold the thing level, because what happened was when I was moving it, it went to the outside like that. That's the shutdown position. It would follow that groove to the inside to play a record. So now let's just take a look at the unit operating under motor power.
Start. Now it's going in the shutdown. You see the grooves following the other direction. Another trouble spot on these units is there's a series of switches here. What they do is they're the muting switches. So when the mechanism is operating, those switches will mute the sound. Anyway, these contacts here, these are a known trouble spot. If you get noise and static and stuff, or one channel cutting in and out, check the contacts here, because they can and do short. And basically what happens when the unit is operating, if I put it through its paces, if you watch what happens, as soon as the gear kicks in, see that? They close. So now they're in the shorted position. So they're held open by this cam here. They're held open. And they're normally shorted closed. So if you have noise or you have one channel that's not working, check those switches, because they do cause problems. And again, as I continue to rotate it here, you'll see as it gets through the end of its cycle, those switches will open. So as the gear makes its full rotation, here comes the lobe, and they're opened, right? But they cause trouble. So keep that in mind. If you have no sound or one channel's cut out, it could be one of these little switches. And they're designed there so that you don't hear the needle getting picked up, you don't hear the pop as the needle drops, and you don't hear the pop as the needle is picked up from the end of the record. That's their purpose in life, just to kill the sound while the unit's going through the automatic cycle. Okay, I'm going to put this thing back together and we're going to try it out, see how it looks, see how it works. So to put it back together, just a reverse of before, just drop the unit back in. Make sure that the lock screws are up or clear the chassis. Then you can tighten down the set screws. This way it'll prevent it from lifting up. Now we got to get the cartridge, put the cartridge back on and test it. Now remember, my pitch control wasn't working before. I lubricated the mechanism. Now the pitch control works. See, I can turn it up. That's just a camera artifact there that you're seeing there, but it is actually pretty. Yeah, it is stable. So that's working now. The pitch control is working now, and it wasn't before. Let's try this thing out. I got to find a phono preamp, because, well, my stereo does have a phono preamp built in. It's just I can't reach the plugs to plug the turntable in. So I guess I have to go and find a phono preamp. I have one with a couple tubes in it. Let's try that one. So of course, first we have to reattach the cartridge. So we'll just push the cartridge in here into place and lock it in place. Okay, now I got to find a record. I do have a Monty Python record around here somewhere. Let's find it. Okay, let's hit the start button here and see what happens with this thing.
That hum is actually the head shell not making a good connection.
I got a bit of a grounding problem here too. There's no ground wire on this set, so I just kind of stuck a jumper wire to the chassis.
I bet you they won't play this song on the radio. I bet you they won't play this new song. Or controversial, just that the in words I can't say.
Okay, if I set it to 10-inch, it will now drop accordingly for a 10-inch record, which would be a 78 RPM record.
Hair. No, we don't. Hold on, funny. The Gospel according to Charlie Drake? No, try me again. I know. Ethel the Aardvark goes... No.
And if I set it for 7-inch,
Ethel the Aardvark goes
it'll now drop in for a 45 RPM record. And this is all purely mechanical by changing the position of a lever.
Or Hindus harmonising in the hall. The Shintoists don't come here shattering sheet glass in the shithouse and shouting slogans.
Oh, don't practice your alliteration on me.
Anyway.
The end of the record, when it picks up the lead out groove, it'll pick the arm up, return it back, and stop it. That sounds like a bearing in the motor, actually, doesn't it? Listen to that noise, that's horrible. We'll have to take this thing apart and lubricate that motor.
I bet you they won't play this song on the radio.
Here comes another one.
Okay, let's see why this thing's making that howling noise. So we'll start by removing the table again. So that I can access the top side of the motor here. You hear the motor? The bearings. The bearings are noisy on this motor. I'm going to have to get into that motor. So first thing we need to do is we need to remove the motor in order to lubricate it. So to do that, I'm going to remove the idler wheel, as I have to get one of the nuts that's underneath there off so that I can drop the motor down through the bottom of the unit, take the motor right out for servicing. Idler tire off, we'll just put that away for safekeeping. Now I can remove the nuts that hold the motor in place. We'll just loosen these nuts off, and this will allow the motor to drop out from the bottom. Oops. Okay, there's the motor out of the way, and now I need to get the motor apart to actually service it. So I'm going to take off the spindle here. It's held in place with a screw. Looks like somebody's tried oiling this thing in the past too, because my hand is all greasy from handling the motor. I'm just going to drag to wipe that thing off. Okay, first we'll remove the shaft. There's a set screw on the side here that we can remove, and that'll remove the actual pulley assembly. We'll set that aside. And now we need to split the motor in two. So there's a couple of screws that go through the motor.
These motors are typically pressed together pretty good, so you need to use a bit of force to get it apart. Sometimes they'll come apart just by prying them apart. Other times they need a little bit of convincing to separate.
Okay, there's the motor in two halves. Now we need to separate the motor itself. What's the best way to do that? Give it a whack. There we go. Now it's apart. Okay, here's the motor assembly and the bearings that we need to lubricate. This is wet inside. It's got oil in there, but it just, can we dry that out? I don't know if somebody's been spraying WD-40 in this thing trying to lubricate it or not, but what a joke. That's probably what it is. I bet you somebody was spraying WD-40 in this thing thinking they were going to get the bearing lubricated, and of course that's not how you lubricate a bearing, folks. You got to take the thing apart to do it. Ah, man. I think some of these people think WD-40 fixes everything. Okay, so what we need to lubricate is we need to get oil down into the bearing cap itself. And for that I'm going to use this stuff. Electric motor oil. This is about as good as you can get. Where's my rotor here? Make sure that's clean. I don't see any scoring, which is good. The bearings look to be in good shape. I don't see any, other than dropping pieces off of it, I don't see any faults with the bearing. So what we'll do is we're going to get some oil into the actual bearing itself. And there's actually a felt pad that surrounds the bearing here, so I want to get some oil into that. So I want to get some oil down around the sides here and into that felt pad. That's what lubricates the thing when it's running, and then we'll fill the bearing up with oil. We'll do the same thing on this one down here. I'll get some oil into the actual bearing itself and down into the shaft. And then I can put the rotor assembly back in. We can put the bottom half of the motor together, put the screw back into it. There we go. Okay, now the bearing's back together. Motor's turning freely. We put the nuts back on here. The motor is back together. Now we have to put on the drive shaft. And tighten up the set screw. Now the drive shaft just sits down all the way to the bottom. It bottoms out. So you don't have to worry about where you took it from.
And if you notice, the speed selector spindle is beveled. That allows the fine adjustment for the pitch control. You'll notice that the 3 distinct rings have a slight bevel to them.
So this is the 78 here. The next one down here is the 45. And this top one here is the 33 RPM speed select. So the motor just goes in like that. I have to hold it in place while I put the nuts on the top, at least until I get them started. Then I'll torque them down. I reattach the drive tire. Now we'll test this thing out and see how quiet it is. Oh, might help if I plug it in. Oh, okay. You guys probably noticed that, right? That I had undone the plug on the bottom, right? You guys noticed that. I took out the plug on the bottom here. If you didn't, shame on you. You should have noticed that. Okay. Of course, I figured that out right away when I picked the arm up and they didn't get light. Okay, there we go. Let's let this thing run for a bit and see how nice and quiet this thing is now, because you remember that motor was squeaking and chirping before. So now the motor's nice and quiet. I don't hear any noise. I'm happy. Let's put the turntable back on and play some records. Big heavy turntable back in place. Retainer clip back in place. Spindle on. Preamp on. Oops. I have a ground problem, I think. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the contacts behind the head shell. I'm just going to use some of my good old 100% Deoxit 100L, because I don't need to be spraying anything in there, but I do need to clean these contacts underneath here. They are literally black with oxidation. So let's just see how much we can get off of these dirty contacts. They're silver, right? And they've tarnished big time. So we'll just put some on this cotton swab and we'll wipe the contacts down and see what happens with them. See how clean they come. What do you think? You think it's working? You think this stuff's working? You guys be the judge. Does stuff work or what? Do another shot on the other side. Yeah, they're pretty filthy. We'll clean the back side of these pins here as well. We'll just put some cleaner on the end of this Q-tip here again. And we'll wipe the back of these contacts. Tip this thing up on its back so that you guys can see what I was cleaning here. If I can. So here's the contacts that are really dirty, really badly oxidated, are these contacts right here.
This is where the head shell connects to the tone arm. And all it takes is a little bit of dirt and oxidation in there, and you get a bad connection or a bad ground, and then you got all kinds of hum and noise and low signal on one channel.
So I'm just going to put some cleaner on these contacts just to keep them clean. And then we'll mount the head shell again. Head shell goes in just like that. Let's run a few more tests on this thing, see how it sounds.
Song on the radio, I bet you they won't play this new song. It's not that it's
All things rude and nasty, the Lord God made the lot. Foul and dangerous, the Lord God made.
Here comes another one.
We'll flip the record over here and play the other side.
Sit on my face and tell me that you love me. I'll sit on your face and tell you I love you too. Sit on my face and let my lips embrace you. I'll sit on your face and then I'll love you truly.
This record has been skillfully crafted by British comedians using ancient, well-worn classical hand-tooled jokes, to be brought out and split up when you get divorced. Any complaints about the humorous quality of this album should be addressed to British Airways, Ingram's Drive, Redditch.
So that's the neat thing about this preamp that I set up when I modified it. I have gain on it, right? So if I have a low level cartridge, I can give it more gain, or if I have a high output cartridge, I can give it less gain. That's great.
Henry Kissinger, how I'm missing you, and wishing you were here.
Mr. Simpson. Welcome to Mousebat, Follicle, Goose Creature, Ampersand, Spawn, Wap, Caplet, Loose Liver, Vendetta, and Bang.
Of course, if you guys want to know how to balance the arm on these things, what you do is you set this little gauge here to 0, and you're going to, this is too heavy, this arm, I just noticed that, but we spin out the weight so that the arm will float freely. We want the arm to basically hang, not go up and not go down. So now I'm too light. And now I'm touching the record.
ICKERLESS.
We're almost there. Okay, so now the arm is going to hang just about free. It's ever so slightly bottom heavy, so we're very close. Okay, the arm is now hanging level. If I lift it up, it'll go up, and if I let it drop, it's holding itself level. Now we're set. Then what we do is we set the calibration mark here for, say, 2 grams, if this is a 2 gram cartridge. Next we set the anti-skating, and this depends on what type of cartridge you've got. If you've got an elliptical or a conical stylus. In this case it's a Shure, it's an elliptical, so we use the elliptical setting here. If we look over here you can see that's for elliptical and conical. So if it's a conical, which is a round stylus, you go that way, and if it's an elliptical stylus you set it to about the same. So 2 grams, which is what I've got the cartridge set for, 2 grams of weight. There's also an adjustment on this if you've got the single or the multi spindle, because this one you can put a single disc, or you could get the actual stacker. There's a lever over here to switch, and that what that does, if you notice, it actually changes the height of the tone arm slightly. If you can see that being raised up, because on this turntable you could remove this and you could put a spindle in here that would allow you to stack, I think it was 5 records, and it would actually change from one record to the next and play them over and over. Okay, it looks like this thing's working, and I'm going to send it out back to the owner of it. This is owned by a client that brings me a lot of stuff, so he's brought me his turntable now, and I think he'll be happy with this. This is a total overhaul on one of these duals. These things are built like tanks, but really you got to look after them. You got to lubricate that motor, and for God's sakes, don't spray WD-40 in it. That motor, my fingers still smell of it. Somebody at some point in time took a can of WD-40 and sprayed it into the bottom of that motor, and I mean, I can still smell it. You know, I wiped it all out. You saw what came out of there, right? I mean, don't do that. Take it apart and fix it the right way. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.